More spring football is in the books, and there is more big-time news on the 40 acres.
Yards shy of the record. Williams breaks a hole. Williams had a record book. Ricky Williams runs to the Hall of Fame. Touchback. Ricky Williams, touchdown.
Young from the shotgun. Back to throw. Vince looks. Under pressure. He'll tuck it in run. Vince to the 5. Young. Touchdown, Texas. Touchdown, Vince Young. He's done it again.
Longhorn Nation, we're back.
Welcome into another edition of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. I'm your host, Matt Galatson. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Zach Dimmitt. Zach, we've gotten 2 media availabilities in spring practice thus far, and things are going pretty well. I would say for the Longhorns through the first couple of days. I don't think anybody expected them not to. Every review out of spring football is always a glowing one, and everybody is always the best player at their position that they could possibly be. But there are a few things that we can still glean and take away from as we continue to watch these practices. And we have a few tidbits that we thought were particularly interesting, and we're going to bring those to you now. The first one that I thought was good news, better than good news, in my opinion, is Ryan Wingo returned to practice after missing the first day. He's limited, which is still to be noted because he is recovering from an offseason wrist surgery. But having him back in the fold and getting the chemistry out there with Ryan Wingo or with Cam Coleman on the field, with some of these other younger receivers having his veteran presence in the fold. It's kind of odd to talk about Ryan Wingo as a veteran because it feels like he just got to campus, but he's heading into his junior campaign. It's great to have him back. He will continue to progress and continue to get more healthy as the spring continues, and hopefully by orange and white game here at the end of April, he will be ready to go, and we will get to see him catching passes from Arch Manning on the field at the same time as Cam Coleman.
Yeah, good to see Ryan Wingo back. There wasn't, really any doubt that he would, have some sort of, or there wasn't really any concern, I should say, that he would not be able to play or practice during spring. So good to see that there was no sort of, setback or anything like that with him, because you're going to need him on the field, catching passes from not only some of these quarterbacks, but eventually Arch Manning when Arch Manning gets back into the fold a little bit. More than he already has, because he's been throwing passes, but not in full capacity quite yet. So, the Longhorns, they just finished the first sort of, session of spring, because they don't practice again until the 24th, according to the official schedule. Today was their final practice, and they get about 11 days off, and then they go
spring break.
Yeah, spring break, of course. And then they go 24th, 26th, 28th, 31st, and then it's pretty much all the way until the spring game where they have tons of practices after that. So, good to see Ryan Wingo back. Doesn't seem like there will be any concern about him not being able to play in the spring game. I think fans are going to want to see what that looks like. Of course, the teams will be split, so who knows what the receiving core will look like on each side, but you'll get somewhat of a sense of what the offense could eventually look like when you have Cam Coleman, Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley as your top 3 guys. Then you add in some of these dynamic freshmen. Of course, Jermaine Bishop, who we'll talk about in a second, has been getting so much hype already. And then you have Cone Brown, Chris Stewart, and some of those returning guys like Khaleke Lockett, Dalen McCutcheon, and then a veteran addition who's getting overlooked a little bit, Sterling Burkhalter. There's just tons of guys to look at in that receiving room, and Ryan Wingo is outside of Cam Coleman is going to be one of those most important guys. Yeah, and I'm with you. It's weird to talk about him as being a veteran going into his 3rd year. I feel like we are just covering him coming out of high school. And now here he is about to be in year 3. I mean, time really flies, and it's pretty crazy. So, good to see him back. And I think Emmett Mosley, he had that ankle injury in the bowl game, so I think he's gonna still be, a little bit more down the line, sort of when it comes to his return. But I think he's gonna be back soon as well in spring, because there wasn't really any concern that he'd be missing all the spring practice like Justice Terry or Ty Anthony Smith. So good to see those guys kind of progressing
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of leads us to our next takeaway. You briefly mentioned it already. Jermaine Bishop. I'm not surprised by this. I thought he was going to be a contributor next year at some point. There are other people who think that it could be a whole lot more than that, though. Not only is he getting rave reviews at practice from the coaches, from the other players, from the media, by the way he's running routes, his speed, his quickness, how silky smooth he is running his routes, his mentality, all the things that you want to see out of a true freshman in spring practice. Dez Bryant, former Dallas Cowboys star wide receiver, and quite outspoken personality at this point. I mean, he was always outspoken, but he flings some hot takes out there. He says that Jermaine Bishop is going to be the Longhorns' number one wide receiver. Not Cam Coleman, not Ryan Wingo, not Emmett Mosley, not even Khalil Lockett, who is, pretty good in the bowl game. He thinks Jermaine Bishop will be basically the next Malachi Toney, if you want to really think about it that way, because, kind of an undersized guy who comes in and can play a couple of different positions and, can make an impact right away. That sounds like Malachi Toney to me. It sounds like that's what Dez Bryant kind of thinks. I mean, I'm putting the comparison, kind of in his mouth there, but at the same time, if Dez knows anything, it's wide receivers. And if he's saying that about Jermaine Bishop, based off of a couple of practice clips, by the way, he wasn't at practice. That's kind of cool. It's kind of exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and no pressure, Jermaine Bishop, to live up to Dez Bryant's expectations. Because whenever I saw that original post from Dez, and like you said, he's a hot take machine when it comes to some of these things. But when I saw that, that original post, I thought he was maybe saying, 2027, Jermaine Bishop will be the number one wide receiver, which isn't exactly a hot take or anything. But then
that's what I assumed.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I thought. And then a fan followed up with saying, "But what about Cam Coleman being on campus this upcoming season?" And Dez made it clear that he was talking about this season. This upcoming fall, Jermaine Bishop will be the number one wide receiver. So I think that is definitely a bold prediction, and that has nothing to do with Jermaine Bishop's talent. Not at all. He is obviously silky smooth, has all the talent in the world, just passes the eye test very, very well. But we still haven't even seen him in full pads, in scrimmages. We just don't know for sure what it's going to look like quite yet, but the potential is, there in flying colors. So, if Jermaine Bishop somehow emerges as the team's number one wide receiver this upcoming season, you can just go ahead and give the national championship trophy to Texas, because then they'll just have probably the best offense in the country. If he's able to somehow surpass Cam Coleman and Emmett Mosley and Ryan Wingo in that room, I just think that's unlikely, because he's just too young and he's not experienced quite yet. So, but man, if that ends up happening and Dez Bryant's right, the Longhorns will be due for some pretty big things this upcoming season, but I think it's unlikely. I think he'll probably emerge into that role in 2027. But it certainly says a lot about how he's seen, even by a guy that was a Pro Bowler, All Pro sort of guy, leads the Cowboys in all-time receiving touchdowns. He obviously knows what he's talking about. So, Jermaine Bishop, he's looked really, really smooth so far, but we got to wait till he gets those pads on. Wait till. Yeah, we don't even know how he knows the playbook quite yet. That's a big part of it too. So, but regardless, he's going to contribute this upcoming season. Will he be the number one wide receiver? I think it's pretty unlikely, just because of the guys in that room, but certainly a big part of the team's future. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, Cam Coleman might have something to say about that. If you really want to know what Jermaine Bishop is all about, though, let me read you off a couple of things, because the numbers are, insane. Okay. Not only has he been compared by scouts to Jordan Addison of the Minnesota Vikings, who I believe was a Biletnikoff winner, if not a finalist, back when he was at Pitt. Mm-hmm. Unbelievable player. That's a great guy to get comped to. He's one of the fastest guys in this entire recruiting class. He shattered the Houston metro area's all-time receiving records with 5,000 yards from scrimmage, 60-plus touchdowns. He also had 15 interceptions and scored 6 touchdowns and returns, including interceptions, punt returns, and kick returns. He for his entire career, he caught 284 passes for 4,921 yards, averaging 17.3 yards per catch with 55 touchdowns. Had almost 1,000 yards rushing, averaging 11.2 yards per carry, and 17 rushing touchdowns. He had 200 tackles, 17 picks. 4 of those he took back for touchdowns. He also, in his final season with Willis, he caught 120 passes for 1,940 yards, 20 touchdowns, ran 45 times for 424 yards and 8 touchdowns. He also threw 3 touchdown passes and then made 77 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 4 picks, 3 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, 12 pass breakups, and led his team into the state playoffs. They did not win a state title, but dude, that is production, and we love to see it. So I can't wait to see him play. I'll tell you that. But we'll see what happens. Obviously, that's a wild projection considering Cam Coleman, Ryan Wingo, and Emmett Mosley are all there. Khalil Lockett is there. Dalen McCutcheon is there. But who knows? I mean, I already think Texas might have the best offense in the country next year, at least in the SEC. But if you get basically a Malachi Toney out of Jermaine Bishop, that's gonna really put it through the roof. One more takeaway, Zach. Colin Simmons has a new mentality heading into this season, which is interesting because it seemed like kind of halfway through the Florida game last year, he just flipped a switch and was like, okay, I'm going to be the best player on the field every game that I play from here on out. And he pretty much was. I mean, you just look back to the Vanderbilt game, for example. He completely took that game over. Absolutely shredded Vanderbilt's offensive line, made one of the game-changing plays, ended up with, I think, 3 sacks in that game. Maybe I'm misremembering, but he had multiple sacks in that game, a forced fumble, and he did crazy things throughout the year. Ended up leading the SEC in sacks. And now he's got a new mentality. Tell us about that, Zach, because it's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, last offseason, I should say, Colin Simmons, he was, not short in confidence. And, why would he be? He, as a true freshman, he was one of the best pass rushers in the SEC. And then won the Sean Alexander Award as best freshman in the country.
Over Jeremiah Smith, by the way.
Right. And a lot of people thought that was pretty controversial, but that says a lot about what he was able to do as a true freshman. And so last offseason, he came in and he was pretty vocal, saying he wants to break the program sack record, do all these things. And now this spring, fast forward to a few days ago, after what was another elite year, now he's just trying to have fun, is what he was saying when he was speaking to the media, and that. Maybe this wasn't his words, but maybe it was a bit of a regret to say that he wanted to break the program sack record, putting that kind of pressure on himself and worrying about chasing these numbers. Those weren't his words necessarily, but you got that sense a little bit, and that now he's just focusing on the team goals. He says team goals, win the Natty, and then the personal goals are have fun. And that's what you want to see from him, because if he's out there having fun and not putting too much pressure on himself, just imagine how much more productive he's going to be if he's just out there playing like he's in the backyard or something. These quarterbacks are already in for a nightmare, and now it's going to be even more scary. That's what I'm predicting, at least. So we all know this is going to be Colin Simmons' last year in Austin. He's heading to the NFL next season. He's going to be a first-round pick. We all know this. And so and he knows that too. So he's trying to take a new mentality, a new approach, because it's obvious that this is a make or break year for Texas. They're going all in, and he's at the center of that. And, being able to have your goals as a team, but personally be able to be a little bit laid back and not put pressure on yourself personally is going to be big for him. And so I really like that approach from him. Sark was talking about earlier in the week during the first practice that he's been really impressed with how mature Simmons has been since stepping on, onto the 40 acres as a freshman to now. He's just matured in a major way. There was some issues with penalties this past season during non-conference play. So not even just maturity off the field, but on the field as well. And so, we already knew the talent is there, but now the maturity is there, the new approach is there, and it's going to be crazy to see what he's going to be able to do this upcoming season.
Yeah, and it's the having fun thing is interesting because I think you hit it right on the head. I think early in the season he was pressing so hard because he wanted to be this game-breaking player that was setting a program record for sacks, and that caused him to be a little bit sloppy, over pursuing, committing penalties, rushing too hard after the passer when potentially he may have just had to seal off an edge or whatever the case may be. It was just he wasn't quite there through the first really 4 games of the season. And then once it got like halfway through the Florida game, it was almost like the Arch Manning moment against Michigan where he was just like, I'm going to stop giving a fuck. And he just started playing really well, like really loose, stopped committing penalties, started producing sacks, started producing pressures, making big time plays. And if he can play like that, like play that free without putting the pressure on himself heading into next season, I think that the sky's the limit. And here's something that's really crazy that I want everybody to think about. Can you name off the top of your head, Zach, just real quick, the last time there was a number 1 overall pick from the Texas Longhorns?
It wasn't Earl Campbell, was it? It wasn't Vince.
I mean, that's how far back you'd have to go. Like it's been that long, and we can do the research and we could figure out for sure. But this is crazy to think about though. Not only could Texas have the number 1 overall pick with Arch Manning, they could have the number 2 pick as well. They could go back to back number 1, number 2, theoretically, potentially, with Arch Manning and Colin Simmons. Oh, and then if Cam Coleman, progresses and becomes the player that we think he can be as well, they could have 3 top 5 picks in next year's NFL draft.
And throw in Trevor Gooseby as a late first rounder.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's other first round potential in there as well. Don't forget that either. There's more, like there's a potential that Texas could have 5 to 6 first round picks next year, including 3 in the top 5. That is insane to think about. This is going to be one of the best draft classes we've ever seen. And with Texas headlining potentially the best draft class that we have seen in quite some time, I think that would be really, really cool. All right, let's change gears real quick. We're going to go a little bit more of a cautionary negative route here now. And then tomorrow, on Monday, we'll get into something, we'll do the reverse of this. But I think it's fair to say that not every team in college football now is perfect, especially considering the talent dispersion across the sport with the transfer portal and all the money that's flowing around in the Big Ten and the ACC and the Big 12, in addition to the SEC, it's more even now than ever. No longer can you sit here and say the SEC is by far the most dominant conference from top to bottom, blah, 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 in terms of talent. I mean, they're still the best in my opinion, but it is far more narrow than it used to be. And there's no more, and I don't think that there's ever really going to be another like 2019 LSU,
right,
where they're just the best at almost every position on the field every single game, and they've got stacked 5-star on 5-star on 5-star behind them. So that's that's no longer a thing these days. So it leads me to the idea of what is our biggest concern about Texas next year. Obviously we're 6 months away, just a shade under 6 months away from the season opener. But it's worth talking about this now. And my buddy Brooks Austin mentioned this on his show a couple days ago. and it really got me thinking. Is depth going to be a problem for Texas? The talent is not a problem. The talent in the depth is not a problem. But when you get past the starting 11 on both sides, it's very unproven. And the secondary itself, even in the starters next year, is going to be a little bit unproven. The offensive line has never played together fully. That's going to be interesting. And behind them, not a lot of depth, not a lot of proven depth, not a lot of proven depth at wide receiver, not a lot of proven depth at running back behind the top two, not any proven depth behind Arch Manning at quarterback. So if there is a big injury to a star player like a Cam Coleman, like a Trevor Gooseby, like Rasheem Biles or Jelani McDonald or, I feel pretty good about what's behind Colin Simmons. But if somebody in one of those realms gets hurt, is there somebody who's prepared to step up and, take over and not have a huge fall off? That's something that national championship teams typically have. And I'm a little wary about it with Texas because we just don't know yet. And that's concerning.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good point. And you mentioned the secondary. There's obviously some star power there with, Jelani McDonald, Bo Masco. But then after that, some experience, but also some inexperience. And you just kind of wonder, what it'll look like in that room, both at cornerback and safety. I mean, Grayson Littleton and Cade Phillips, they were, impressive as true freshmen, but will they be able to take that step forward, and will the room as a whole be able to take a step forward when you have guys like Wardell Mack, even Jonah Williams? What will that depth look like, not just at, cornerback and safety, but overall as a unit, because they got to work together. So, I'm with you there. And then the offensive line, we've talked at length about it this offseason, about, what that's going to look like. We still don't even know if Lawrence Seymour is going to be on this team next year because we haven't gotten any update on his eligibility. And so if in worst case scenario, he's not part of the fold, you're taking a big hit when it comes to not only your starters, but your depth, because then a guy you were planning to potentially have as that number 6 or number 7 guy may now have to start. We mentioned Andre Kojo coming back, Dylan Sikorsky, who's going to step into that guard spot if Lawrence Seymour somehow isn't able to be granted his eligibility. So, because Sark said on Monday there still is no update. And so that's a little bit concerning that there hasn't been any news there yet. I think that at running back, you don't really have to have much concern about the depth there. Wide receiver as well. Offense, the skill positions, it looks pretty good. Of course, you don't want to assume Arch Manning misses any time, but you do have a veteran, MJ Morris. You have KJ Lacey, who's shown some shine early in spring ball. But I think it's more important to look at the other groups when it comes to a depth perspective. So yeah, there is a lot of questions. And I think I mentioned the secondary, but it really does start with the offensive line, because that's been the biggest concern, or one of the biggest concerns coming into this offseason already. And then now, you may not, if there's a worst case scenario, you may not have one of the top transfer guys in Lawrence Seymour at that position coming in. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But then you're already short a guy before you've even taken the field. So, I think that's definitely something to watch. But like we saw last season, Grayson Littleton did step up. Cade Phillips did step up. So just you got to wait and see who's ready to step up and who's ready to fill a void if there is an injury, because as the seasons go on, you're going to have guys that are unproven, but there's going to be that moment where they prove that they're ready to contribute, and then they're going to be a big part of the program. And it just has to be, there's going to be some of those moments next season. So we just don't know who that's going to be quite yet, but I think it'll happen. And so I've got confidence about what they have across the board. And we'll get a taste of that during the spring game here next month.
Yeah. And that's just one thing that I think, and I think it holds true to almost every team in the country at this point. There's not a team that is going to be that stacked depth-wise in college football anymore, like I mentioned. And if that's going to be the case everywhere, then it's probably not as big of a concern as maybe it would have been in years past. But I think that one thing that we can be sure of is that more often than not, Texas will probably have the best 22 on the field at almost every single game that they play. And that's a really good thing. That's really good. All right, Zach, let's take a break real quick. When we come back, we will discuss the Texas Longhorns basketball team and, if they're going to make it, because we don't know.
This episode of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast is brought to you by Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi. Custom Built Trailers is the largest in-stock trailer dealer in Mississippi with a variety of options to choose from flatbed goosenecks to bumper pull equipment trailers and car haulers to enclosed trailers and basic utility trailers. We do a little bit of everything. And if we don't have exactly what you're looking for in stock, we can typically have your custom built trailer built in 7 to 10 working days. 0% financing options are available, and we also deliver out of state. So give Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi a call at 601-722-9581 today and let us take care of your hauling needs. Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi. If we don't have it, we'll be glad to build it.
Welcome back to the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. I'm your host, Matt Galatson, joined by Zach Dimmitt, my co-host, as always. Kind of a abrupt end for the Texas Longhorns in the SEC tournament, Zach. A really embarrassing loss to Ole Miss. Sean Miller, visibly frustrated, but he did have an interesting quote about more or less saying that he's sleeping fine at night. He's not too worried about it. It's year one. You got to build and figure out where you need to fix your team, and you're building for the future. It's not all about year one, and that's true. But you still want to make the damn NCAA tournament. That's why you fired Rodney Terry, because he couldn't advance you in the NCAA tournament. And we're not sure. I mean, Texas is going to be gritting their teeth on Selection Sunday at this point. Right now, they're projected to be in Dayton by Joe Lunardi. At least the last I saw. I don't know if that's changed, but that doesn't guarantee a spot. That's putting it plainly, because there's always shocking things that happen. I believe North Carolina was one last year that got in that a lot of people didn't think should have gotten in, and maybe they pick a team like that over Texas this year. We just don't know. Had you beaten Ole Miss, I'm not sure it would have helped you tremendously, but losing to them hurts you. And if you look at what they've done recently, it hasn't been that great either. You lost to Oklahoma to end the regular season. Like I said, you lost to Ole Miss in the SEC tournament. You lost to Arkansas before that. You've lost 5 of your last 6 after it had looked like this team had really turned a corner with, I guess they had won 6 of their previous 7 before going on that streak. So I don't know, Zach, where are you sitting on this? I'm not too comfortable with where the Longhorns are right now.
Yeah, Texas should not be feeling comfortable. Longhorns fans should not be feeling comfortable. Joe Lunardi, his last update was 9 hours ago this morning, and Texas is the final team in. that is really, really gritting your teeth there, especially when you consider that Oklahoma is the first team out, and they play Arkansas in a few hours, and if they win that game, Oklahoma, and there's not much of an argument, Oklahoma is probably going to be jumping Texas, and they're probably going to be in Dayton, which is insane to think. I mean, when we've been talking on the show a few weeks ago, it almost felt like Texas was close to being a lock. Just got to get one more win, and they'll be a lock. And it has just really, really fallen off the rails. When they won in College Station a few weeks ago, that was a big road win. Felt like they were right there, close to being a lock. And then they lose to Arkansas. They lose at home to Oklahoma. And then, okay, it is what it is. And then you drop a game to Ole Miss, who was 12-19 entering the game.
Bad Ole Miss team.
Ole Miss is not good this year. And Texas made them look like an elite team. The committee is going to value the whole body of the resume. Will there be some recency bias? Maybe for some of them, but I think as a whole, the whole body of the resume is going to play a factor and not just what they just saw happen. And so Texas still has a lot going for it when it comes to the resume. They still have some big wins, but the string of losses has come at the worst time. And the fact that one of those losses was to Oklahoma, you could have ended Oklahoma's season potentially while locking yourselves into the tournament. And instead, now it could be Oklahoma that passes up Texas. Who knows what happens? I mean, there has been a precedent that's been set in years past where if you're a team that's far off the bubble, you can't just work your way back onto the bubble and get into the tournament just by winning a few games in Nashville, unless you win the whole thing in Nashville. That's been set in years past. So we'll have to wait and see what the committee does with Oklahoma, because I did lose 9 straight games in SEC play. And that's on their resume. So they're not going to ignore that either. But yeah, Texas, who I don't think I saw this coming. I thought Texas was going to be safely in, assuming that they were going to win some of these games. But now they are going to be absolutely sweating. And some of these games to watch today include a VCU in the Atlantic 10 tournament, New Mexico in the Mountain West. SMU and Missouri are already out, but then of course that Oklahoma game tonight. These are some teams that Texas fans are going to be wanting to watch, because these are all bubble teams that are still playing in their tournaments, and that could hurt Texas, along with a potential bid stealer being in some of these conference tournaments. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Selection Sunday is going to it's only a few days away, but it's going to feel like an eternity for the team, because there's going to be a lot of pressure.
Well, I don't really know what to think, because I know that there's a precedent set that the SEC tournament's not really going to help you unless you win it. But look, Oklahoma's been super hot lately. If they beat Arkansas, I don't think it'd be crazy to consider like the committee, especially because they beat Texas on their home floor. Like, well, I mean that's a really good win. They're right on the bubble. We can switch out the last team,
right?
And what's Oklahoma's coach's name? Porter Moser. Yeah, he was on the hot seat like a couple weeks ago, and now he's working his way back into it. It seems like Oklahoma is really on fire. They're playing really, really well. I never thought I'd be sitting here with Texas basketball sweating what happens with VCU in New Mexico.
Yeah.
Like, that's bizarre to me. But new precedents can be set. We saw the College Football Playoff Committee basically, reset all of their rules and regulations as the season went on, and they didn't really have any sort of continuity or consistency. I don't expect the March Madness Committee to do the same thing, but I mean, you never know. Texas has kind of been a disaster over the last couple of weeks, and I would not blame them if they decided to leave a team like that out. The thing that does work for Texas, well, I don't think it's going to work this year, but the thing that worked for Texas last year, I think, was they had Trey Johnson, who was a lottery pick, and you combine the name Trey Johnson and the name Texas Longhorns. That's a team that the committee wants in the tournament. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they don't have really any star power to the level of a Trey Johnson. They don't really have a lottery pick on the team. I mean, maybe Dalen Swain can make it in, but like that seemed like more of a thing a couple of weeks ago than it does today, right? Yeah. So Texas, like, they still have the Texas Longhorns name. They don't have the star power. Maybe that's going to end up hurting them at the end. And if Oklahoma beats Arkansas,
it's probably over.
Yep. It's probably over. I wouldn't be surprised if it was over. But thank you so much for tuning into this edition of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. Please make sure to like and subscribe and rate our podcast. Also comment down below on YouTube to let us know your thoughts. It really helps us out in the YouTube algorithm and helps us pay the bills. But most importantly, be sure to tell somebody you love them, and we'll catch you in the next one.